it brought me back to the dumb comedies of the 90s and early 2000s that people just wanted to get off work, be entertained.
It's Lal Azim here from Popcorn and Soda, and I'm excited today to be joined by one of the stars of the upcoming film, The Roaring Game, Justin Chatwin. Justin, how are you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great. This film is such a refreshing throwback, Justin, to films like Dodgeball, Blades of Glory, Dumb and Dumber. And I feel like we're really missing that in films nowadays, that light-hearted underdog comedy. So when you were reading the script, what elements stuck out to you?
When I first read The Roaring Game, I hadn't done a movie. I took a little bit of a break for a bit, so this was kind of the first thing that was thrown at me. And I don't really get comedies, but exactly what you were saying, it brought me back to the dumb comedies of the 90s and early 2000s that people just wanted to get off work, be entertained, smoke a joint, go to the bathroom and not miss anything and just laugh and laugh at dumb humor. And like you know, I'm a sucker for dumb humor. I like dumb, crude humor. And you're right. Like, I don't see a whole lot of these movies being made anymore. So when I read it, it just kind of brought me back to just the kind of simple entertainment where you could sit down with your girl and just laugh.
Love it. And I agree 100%, right? It keeps comedy at its simplest form. And like you said, dumb humor, like the troll humor that is missing nowadays, I find in movies, is I think it's so well done in this. Your performance as Troy in this film is such a standout. Justin, I guess the biggest compliment that I can give you is that he's one of the most punchable bros I've ever seen in a film in a long time. And
Nice.
big credit goes out to you for your amazing performance. I feel like both of us have probably met many hockey bros like Troy, especially growing up in Canada.
Yeah.
What was your process of bringing Troy to life?
Thank you first off. I'm proud to represent the bros out there because they need a voice too because they're not represented enough. Just kidding. Uh, I grew up in Vancouver Island. I don't know if you know that, but so I played hockey. So I was around a lot of these guys. These guys are the reason why I left Vancouver Island and like needed to go to California. These are the guys that tormented me growing up, and I also am friends with a few ex NHL players. So I spent some time chatting with them, and I just was around all these guys growing up, and I definitely cranked up the Alberta Saskatchewan hockey player of it all. And I didn't really base it on one person, but just kind of your stereotypical Canadian hockey knucklehead, which I had probably the most fun out of any movie I've done recently playing this guy.
It's fascinating, right? Being in Canada and like for yourself as well, growing up there. All I ever really knew about curling was watching it when it was on like every 4 years on the Olympics and the name Jennifer Jones. She's like this iconic Canadian curler. And I learned more about the sport than I ever have from this movie. So for you, have you curled before? How familiar were you with like the actual rules of the sport?
Well, I never curled. I was actually not even there on this movie for the curling scenes. So, and I've never curled. And I know, I still know nothing about curling. Um, but I grew up playing hockey. I also just, I don't know, can you legally build a jump and launch a curling puck in the air? Like, is that actually a legal move?
That was a fascinating scene in the film, and I was watching that. I'd want to say no because I've never seen that ever before from like the very limited curling that I have seen. But I guess the beauty of film, right?
Yeah.
Now you mentioned you played hockey. What position did you play?
I played right wing.
Okay, and did you ever find that hockey was ever growing up in Vancouver and most kids in Canada wanting to grow up to be a hockey player. Was that ever in the cards for you? Did you have that dream, or was it always you're more
Hmm.
so of the
Uh,
arts kid, the creativity in you?
no, I just, for me, I played hockey because my dad wanted me to play hockey. It was more about getting my dad's approval and also like fitting in with people. It was kind of my whole childhood was just about like, who am I? Am I this guy or am I that guy? And for me, I don't think I started finding myself till I met groups of actors and filmmakers and fell into the circus that became the past 25 years of my life, where it was more about expression and creativity. But I definitely like grew up in that toxic masculine environment, which I now get the opportunity to kind of play those characters. And I know that psychology. I understand that psychology now. So I can take a character like Troy and make it more fleshed out and have fun because I know the perspective of those sort of guys.
This is such a great ensemble piece, right? Darren Brooks, yourself, Mickey Rourke, Gronk, Fievel. If you were to describe the Roaring Game in one word, what would you say?
Um, it's a great movie to smoke a bowl and hold your grandmother's hand and go watch a really silly movie.
And I feel like the world needs more of that right now. It really, really does.
Totally.
Yeah, Justin, shifting gears a little, and it's not very common where I speak to someone who I can pinpoint certain aspects of that really influenced me into my passion for interviewing, media, and editing. So there are two films of yours that I vividly remember watching in theaters growing up. And that's War of the Worlds, where you as
Hmm.
Robbie, and Dragon Ball Evolution as Goku. Now, before I preface what I'm about to say, Justin, do you remember like that mid 2000s craze of fan made YouTube movie trailers?
Yes. Yes. I
Because
know. Are you going to talk about the car head slide?
I remember that one, yes, but that's not the one I'm
Yeah.
going to refer to. But yes, in that world where everyone was just
That was
creating.
one of them, though, right? Like people would
Absolutely.
just recut trailers and movies into their own thing. A lot of it was just absurd.
Oh, believe me, I added to that because one of the very first things I ever did in media was creating a
Uh,
fan made Dragon Ball trailer as a kid, like on Windows Movie Maker. It's not even a thing anymore. I just remember finding clips of you from The Invisible and
uh,
James Marster, some Buffy, throwing on some random Linkin Park song in the back just to kind of make this Dragon Ball Z evolution trailer. I've always been so fascinated to speak to you about that film because of my love of the anime.
cool. Yeah,
As a
let's go.
kid, yeah, as a kid, I really remember enjoying that movie in the theaters. It was such a great time for me. Now, Justin, how do you view Dragon Ball and the filming of it today?
How do I view the filming of Dragon Ball?
Yeah, and just the overall experience that you had on that.
Um, well, Dragon Ball for me was, it was something that I don't know. I thought it was going to be something else. I went in and I met on it, and obviously I had just gotten War of the Worlds, and I had some momentum, and they showed me Dragon Ball Z, and they showed me the storyboards, and Sin City had just come out, referencing Mickey Rourke, who's in this movie, and they were like, it's gonna be like Sin City, it's gonna be all dark and like muted colors and like really cool, and then I read the script and I was like, it's all right, it's like kind of the hero's journey. It's not really in line with Dragon Ball. Like I was kind of like, I don't know if fans are gonna be like, oh, this is great. I was like, where's his tail? Where's like, you know, the real mythology of it? But I was like, they were like, well, we want it relatable to like a new fan base, and I was like, oh, cool, well, that's great. Let's do it. So I signed up to do it, and then I remember like within the first 2 weeks of being there, I was like, oh man, they were changing the whole look. They were rubbing oil all over our faces and shooting us with these bright lights down in Mexico City and super bright colors. And I was like, did you guys pull the plug on the original vision of this? And and it was cool because we were filming down in Mexico and on a lot of the sets that Sam Peckinpah and John Wayne used to film in, and I loved that. I kind of fell in love with Mexico back, when I was shooting this, and the filming of any movie and the experience and the people that you meet is really what it was all about. So for me, it was like I got to work with 8711. I got to learn all these martial arts. I got to work with all these great actors like um, Chow Yun Fat and Randall Duck Kim and Jamie Chung, and it was and Emmy Rossum, and so it was really fun. Like every movie's really fun. Um, was it like what I thought it was going to be originally when they were showing me the idea? No, it wasn't what my expectations thought it was going to be. But I got to travel the world, and I got to be Goku for a brief moment. Um, would I be cast if they cast it in this day and age? Like, would I get cast as Goku again? Probably not. Like, he wasn't like a white Caucasian dude, at all. So, you just take a lot of at that time in my life, I was taking whatever came my way. Is this a cool opportunity? Oh, wow. Like, yeah, I get the opportunity to play this iconic character, and any part I get, I love, diving in. So I dove in the best that I could in a film that was, and mostly everything was out of my hands. Um, and it served a purpose. I can tell you a crazy story if you want to hear
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
Okay, so you know, I did that movie. I was the last studio feature film that I did. It kind of crunched my movie career a little bit before I went back to TV, because it wasn't received well. But about 10 years later, I started riding motorcycles with Bill Macy from Shameless, around America, and we took a bunch of trips together, and then I started cruising around with my other friends, and we decided to ride our Harleys from Vancouver, BC to the bottom of Argentina. And so we started out this trip, and we went down Baja, Mexico, and we started having bike problems. There was five of us guys, and we went from La Paz over to Mazatlan. And Mazatlan was just south of Durango where we shot Dragon Ball. Anyways, we linked up with this local Mexican, vigilante crew of guys, and they were like, "We'll help you fix your bikes. Just come party with us." So we partied with them that night. We got a hotel, and you know, they seemed cool. And the next morning, they fixed our bikes. We offered them money. They were like, "No, no, no, no money, man." But they were on like walkies and things. It was kind of weird. I was like, I don't know. This is these guys. I don't know what's going on, but they were super hospitable and really nice. And took off the next day. There was some beheadings from the drug cartel in the Puerto Vallarta area on the water. So we were like, let's go inland. Let's go in towards Durango and Mexico City, and let's just go around where all the commotion is. And we weren't looking for trouble. We were just looking for the safest route down to, El Salvador and Guatemala. And so we went up through the mountains, and I got a flat tire, and the guys that drove us up, they rode us for a bit, and then they were like, "All right, see you later. Good luck." And they were like on walkies, like walking people. And I was like, this is kind of sketch. Anyways, it was really cold. We went up 9,000 feet. Anyways, we started getting, the sun went down, it started getting dark. And then all of a sudden we started getting followed by an Escalade, a black Escalade in Mexico. And I was like, oh my God, this is not good. So it was like 9 p.m. It was about this time of year too. So it was freezing. We start getting high beamed by a black Escalade in the middle of Mexico. It starts driving around us, kicking rocks on us. It was super sketch. Anyways, the Escalade comes out front, it stops to a skid, and the blinkers just go on, and I see a hand come out. It waves at me to come over here. So I look back at my buddies, and everyone's just frozen. And I was like, what the fuck? So I walk over to this car, and I look in the car, and there's like five Mexicans wearing all black, and they got this little thing that says Templarios. And I was like, the Templarios, Knights of the Templar, that's the drug cartel. And I was like, holy shit. And the guy's like, what's your name, man? In English. So I was like, how does he know like that I'm, I guess we had California plates, but it's like, what's your name? And I was like, Justin. And he's like, Justin Chatwin. And I was like, what the fuck? Anyways, he kicks open the door and he grabs me and he gives me a huge hug and he goes, brother, I was the set medic on Dragon Ball Z. I've been waiting all day for you. And so the Mexican drug cartel like brought us into Durango, brought us out for dinner, got us a hotel, and brought us out partying that night. And had I not done Dragon Ball Z, I don't know if I would be around right now. Oh, in a way, it saved my life.
Dragon Ball, the gift that keeps on giving, right? Worldwide.
Yeah,
Well, listen, Justin, thanks for that amazing story. That just blows my mind. Congratulations on the upcoming release of the Roaring game. I had such a great time with it. I'm sure audiences will as well. I'm wishing you well. Thank you for the influence over the years on my trajectory as
thanks,
a
brother.
creative artist. Stay safe on the bike. And most importantly, I really appreciate your time today, brother.
Thanks, brother.